Back at it, Sportsbook betting insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, October 11th. I'm at Real Sportsbet on Twitter. He's at Teddy_covers, SBR picks. All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. College football today, rapid fire with the marquee games. And we'll see if we get some chaos coming up in the SEC. And if West Virginia can go down, play of the day before we get out of here, try to get back on track in football. Short card, not a lot going on in the world of sports. One bad beat. Golden Knights, Capitals under. It was 6-2-1 in the third, 4 goals capped off by the empty net goal. 5-2 Capitals, rematch of the Stanley Cup Finals. Golden Knights with a tough road trip are now 1-3. Issues on the power play and issues on defense. Capitals get the win as we've seen some crazy 6.5 totals so far. 6 is on a regular basis in the NHL.
So I had a chance to talk with a couple guys, bookmakers here in Las Vegas yesterday about the Golden Knights because last year, let's be honest, this was as big a betting bandwagon as I've ever seen in Las Vegas. Felt like every single game, everybody in town was betting on the Knights and cashing ticket after ticket after ticket. It was good for the handle for the sports books, not so good for the hold. So the assumption was, as soon as the 2018-19 season starts, everyone that won all that money with the Knights last year is going to be betting on the Knights every game again this year here in Las Vegas. And already, it's only a 1-3 start. Already, we've seen the betting action on the Vegas Golden Knights decline. Not what it was last year. The bandwagon isn't there to open up the 2018-19 season the way it was to close out last year. So right now, Vegas not a huge liability for the bookmakers the way they were for most of last season.
Not really. It's the biggest liability they've ever had on a winner point total at the Westgate. They bet the points total skyrocket. Biggest liability they've ever had, and they've only had one home game. So get back to me when they start playing home games as they're on the middle of this road trip too. So that's one key difference as well. But they pounded all the futures and they pounded the win total as well. Bad for the books. Lakers over 232 up to 235. That game was here in Vegas, 123 to 113. And also bad for the books. Suns Blazers under 226 down to 222. 116 to 83. NBA teams that were listed as home teams last night, 7-1 straight up.
Yeah, and let's be honest, all right? When we're talking about NBA preseason in the bad beats, bad bet section, it tells you it was a quiet night in sports. And we don't get a lot of these. The NBA real season starts next week. You know, we've had this little lull midweek where there hasn't been playoff games, and we just got a little bit of hockey on the slate in the NBA preseason. That's why the preseason totals, which it doesn't take a whole lot of money to move. And frankly, I don't know if anyone out there was betting them. The wise guys bet them. But quiet night in Las Vegas last night. There's not that many of them, Pauly, but it definitely was quiet in the books on Wednesday.
Heat Pelicans under 226 down to 222.5. That's a bad bet, not even close. 120 to 128. 140 to 128. Suns plus 7.5 down to 5 routed against the Blazers. So here we go. Let's get to it. This is 12:30 Pacific on CBS. Monster matchup, Georgia against LSU. I will say pump the brakes on Georgia. Maybe they're very good, but they haven't played anybody. And Missouri was right there with them. And their other marquee wins against South Carolina. Remember, Georgia dropped the ball at the 1-yard line going in. Missouri picked it up and ran it back for a touchdown, although they didn't count it because they didn't have the right TV replay angle, if you can believe it. And Missouri also had some silly turnovers in that one. They're betting Georgia. They're up to 8, 50.5 the total. And Edgy Orgeron has been terrific here as a home dog. I'd like them even more if it was a night game, but it's a day game, and we'll see if they can rebound after the tough loss at Florida.
Yeah, and, there were some definite concerns about that loss at Florida. Look, Georgia hasn't played here since 2008. The last time Georgia played a road game in Baton Rouge, Mark Richt was their head coach. Matthew Stafford was their starting quarterback. Nosha Marino was the top running back. 2008. It's been a while since they've been here. And, of course, we have seen a fair bit of Bulldogs money so far this week, despite the fact that they have some issues on the defensive line right now. They could be down a pair of starting defensive linemen. David Marshall has a left foot injury, out indefinitely. Kirby Smart saying it does not look good for this game. And the junior Ben Cleveland also banged up Here's smart. We're a dinged up football team, which a lot of teams are at this time of year. We have mistakes that we have to clean up as we put the game plan in. Certainly, injury concerns Georgia defensively, a major problem right now. But that's a team with a whole lot of depth, Pauly. It really is.
LSU had 3 turnovers against Florida, and Florida was outgained LSU in total yards and 215 on the ground as well. It was a strange game. LSU gets the ball, goes right down the field. They get a stop. They're driving again to go in for the kill. Then they turn it over. And then, of course, the pick six at the end sealed it as well. So strange game there, but they get the loss. Mullen doing a great job at Florida. And Orgeron said, put the loss on me. I have to do a better job. And they have issues protecting Burrow as well. Couldn't block him, he said. Every protection we tried, Florida had an answer for.
Sure, and that is a big concern, even with the injuries on the defensive line for Georgia. When you get a quote from Orgeron like this, we couldn't protect. We tried every single protection call we had. It didn't work. That's a concern for me. Stepping in front of one of the best teams in college football is a concern for me. But let's be perfectly honest about this ball game, Pauly. Laying a price with Georgia on the highway right now at this stage of the campaign, I'm a Bulldogs believer. There are no point spread bargains betting the Georgia Bulldogs right now. It is an LSU or pass game for this better, even though I am concerned about Burrow and the offensive ability and the LSU offensive line ability to protect him to throw downfield.
All right. Also, 12:30 Pacific, ABC, monster matchup in the Pac-12, elimination game. Washington is 57.5 against Oregon. Oregon had the big blew the big game against Stanford. Other than that, didn't play anybody non-conference, but they have probably the number 1 pick in the draft in Herbert. Peterson never lost these games at Boise. They had the tough loss to start against Auburn, where they outplayed him in the second half and 2 trips inside the 5-yard line that resulted in 0 points. I am sitting and waiting on the A game from Washington that is still yet to show. Did a great job thumping BYU at home, beat Utah on the road 21-7, but I'm waiting for that breakout game where they put it all together. Got the win by 7 on the road against UCLA. I think you get it Saturday, and Washington will get the win, and Browning will have a big game, and the offense will get going with a nasty Washington defense. They finally played a big total, too, 57.5, as Washington is 4-1 to the under.
Sure, and when we talk about the best coaches in any sport, people want the hype. No, it's not about hype. It's not about motivating your players. What does Belichick do that other coaches don't do? What does Popovich do that other coaches don't do? It's the attention to detail. And Chris Peterson, all his quotes this week, talking about the win over UCLA last week, talking about what stands out for Oregon, talking about what they have to improve. We need to work on the little details. And that's the truth for the Washington Huskies right now. They have been an outstanding team. They have not been one of the 5 or 6 best teams in college football. And look, the defense is loaded. I've talked about this. It feels like every week I'm talking about all the NFL talent they have at running back and at wide receiver. Jake Browning's not that good. And he is who he is. He's going against Jim Leavitt's defense. And I'll tell you what, Peterson was a little bit concerned about going up against Leavitt defensively, even though it's the same structure and the same scheme. There is a fair bit of aggression for that Oregon Ducks defense, and they're going to win this game. They're going to have to get Browning uncomfortable with something that Leavitt may well be capable of doing.
Yep, and you got Oregon coming off the bye, and they had a good bounce back after they blew that game against Stanford. They then beat Cal with a good road win as well. Washington 5-1 to the under on the season. Shortchanged their 5-1 as well. So big matchup coming up at 12:30. West Virginia and Iowa State. West Virginia 6.5 and 56 on the road. Here comes Iowa State all of a sudden. Big road win against Oklahoma State. Doesn't matter who the quarterback's been. They've done a nice job. Remember, they shocked the world as 31-point dogs with the third-string quarterback last year, beating Oklahoma on the road. Campbell has been on a nice run as a dog as well. And here's the dream season for West Virginia. This was supposed to be their easy month, but if they can, all their tough games were supposed to be coming up in November when it's Texas and TCU, and they have Oklahoma the day after Thanksgiving. But now a top 10 team with a Heisman candidate in Greer got out of there with the win against Kansas as well. and we'll see if Iowa State's live here, although Holgerson hasn't been happy. He hated their performance in the second half against Texas Tech, where they blew a big lead, got the pick six to win it late, did not score a point on offense in the second half. And we'll see if they can keep it going here against Iowa State, although he's concerned about Iowa State and thinks this is a dangerous spot for him.
I agree with him. I think it's a dangerous spot, too. We talk about Matt Campbell and his record as a dog. And again, Campbell, not one of these head coaches, been around in 50 spots. Iowa State's been a nice little cradle of coaches and coordinators. We talk about Tom Herman. That's where he got his start as a coordinator. And Matt Campbell, his last 9 tries in underdog, he's lost one of those games. A couple pushes in there. They haven't covered them all. But, as we saw again last week, Iowa State's dangerous. Catching points. Dana Holgerson knows what's coming. Talking about the Cyclones, these guys don't care where they're playing. They're going to line up and play the same. They're a well-coached, disciplined bunch that continues to get better. Don't care if they're 2-3 or 5-0. Doesn't make any difference to me or our team. Obviously, they're coming off a big win at Okie State. Hard place to play. They competed hard and won that game. Shoot, the weekend before they went to TCU and competed hard down there as well. And that, to me, really stands out. Iowa State won a shootout on the road the one week. They put up 48 points with the third-string quarterback and without their star running back last week. And the week before, they covered wire to wire, nearly beat TCU at TCU in a game the offense only scored 14 points in that game. Holgerson, they're disruptive up front. The biggest difference between last year and what they're doing this year is their front is a lot better. So we got a coach that we like. We got a team that's hanging tough as a dog. We have a team that's putting up points and a team that's playing defense. And they're home dogs this week against a team getting a whole lot of hype in West Virginia.
Yep, and Holgerson loves the fact that Greer is mixing it up and throwing at different people. 10 different players have caught a touchdown, and it's not just Sills, as Greer is getting everyone involved as well. Big game coming up. That'll be the play of the day in a second. 7:30 Pacific, Fox Sports 1. Huge game in the Pac-12. Colorado undefeated and ranked at USC. They've never beat USC on the road. I don't think they've ever beat USC. USC is 7-57 the total. A lot of respect for the Trojans and not much home field advantage to speak of. They didn't have a great crowd for that Friday night game where they were lucky to get out of there alive. Won but didn't cover against Washington State. Washington State blew that game. And Colorado, great story. Montez, good quarterback, good weapon. Chenault, Heisman Trophy candidate. He can do it all, the wide receiver. Line him up, Wildcat as well. 7-point win at home last week against Arizona State. If they win this game, I think Colorado's going to the Pac-12 title game.
They might, and they're in position to do it. But, Mike McIntyre, we know we're going to have to win a ton of Pac-12 games to win the conference, to win the Pac-12 South. USC is a Pac-12 South team, so that makes it a little bigger. They're all big, but if you can beat a Pac-12 South opponent, that puts them a notch behind you. It's a big game for us. In fact, it would be a 3-game lead for Colorado over USC in the Pac-12 South if they win here in straight-up fashion. Of course, we don't care if they win in straight-up fashion. We want to know if they're going to cover the 7 points. If they are going to cover the 7 points, you may want to have something on the money line in this ball game. But from a spot perspective, let's call it what it is. This is a really tough spot for Colorado on the highway. They're 5-0. They're ranked. There's a ton of hype. They're coming off a huge conference win, a back-and-forth game against Arizona State. And they're going against a USC team that is coming off a bye, is focused on the single task at hand. USC's got edges. Montez to Chenault is probably the most underrated QB to our quarterback wide receiver duo in college football this year. And Colorado's done a lot of celebrating going 5-0, but USC has talent edges. USC has speed edges. USC has side edges, the size edges. USC has the NFL prospects that Colorado doesn't. They flat out have better players coming off the bye.
Who cares?
The Trojans are supposed to take care of business here, but, Clay Helton's squad, they don't clean anything up, Pauly. That's been a major issue for USC and why I lean in their direction, but why I will not get to the betting window laying a touchdown with the Trojans, despite how good this spot is for them.
I've watched every game. They're lousy. They're poorly coached. I don't care how much talent they have. It's a coaching mismatch. They couldn't put away Arizona on the road. They almost blew that game. Stupid penalties. Stupid. Dumb mistakes. 124th in penalties per game this year. 18. I couldn't believe it. 18 penalties against Arizona. I kind of lean under, and I'm with you. I'm not taking USC with that one as well. The marquee game, 4:30 at night. 4:30 Pacific. Michigan at home. And that overrated Harbaugh against Wisconsin. We'll see if they'll be able to move the ball here. I also think this will be a low-scoring game. It is 9 now, up to 9 and 49 with the total. I like under in this one. Michigan against Wisconsin. Hornibrook did a good job coming back against Iowa and getting the win. And we'll see here. But just the Badgers lost as a 3-touchdown favorite at home to BYU. I just don't think they're that good. But we'll see. I mean, they had issues last week. Michigan had issues last week before they pulled away against Maryland. I don't think Taylor and Wisconsin will be able to run the ball, though, on a good Michigan run defense.
And that's the key here. When you talk about Michigan's defense and why the Wolverines are getting all of this betting market respect on a third, whatever, the money's been coming on Michigan all week. From the opener, we're sitting at 7.5, and now we're looking at 9s. And why is that money coming to Michigan? Simple, the stats. Defensively, the Michigan defense is ranked number 1 in the country, fewest yards per game allowed, period. So the markets, and certainly the wise guy markets, react strongly to stats like that, defensive stats, elite defensive stats. Michigan's D was rock solid last year. Obviously, it's certainly been elite this year. The defense good enough to get the job done, getting the cover against Maryland last week. Of course, with Shea Patterson finally showing some signs of getting comfortable in what Harbaugh wants to do, there's respect for the Wolverines. A ton of respect for the Wolverines, perhaps too much respect for the Wolverines, given this point spread and given the fact that Wisconsin's offense hasn't done anything Michigan's offense hasn't done anything against Wisconsin the last 2 years, losing once straight up, losing both against the spread, managing just 14 and 10 points in those 2 games against the Badgers.
Yeah. Well, is Wisconsin good? That's the key, because Harbaugh can't beat a good team. It's been a long time since Harbaugh beat someone who's good. So they're 4-1, but they've had some close calls, and certainly that disappointing loss against BYU, and should have lost at Iowa. Although Hornibrook took them 95 yards, I give them credit there. So if they win, they're 6-1. They still got some big games coming up. They travel to Ohio State, and they got that Penn State showdown coming up as well. But I think the lines, this is getting out of control now, up to 9.
Sure, but no, I mean, Hornibrook last year hit A.J. Taylor for 2 big touchdowns in that ball game. There was, one in the third quarter, another in the fourth. Hornibrook is not a quarterback that I'm really confident in against a good defense. We've seen the accuracy isn't there. He's not a guy who's gotten better as his career has progressed. Paul Chryst, their whole defense is talented. I think anytime you face a defense that's talented and well coached, I think they have great confidence and knowledge. The players I'm talking about now in their scheme, they play fast. And so I think the strength of that defense, they have a number of talented players, so you can't focus on only one. I don't know where Wisconsin gets their points in this game. The question is, can Michigan's offense move the football against a defense that has really stifled them the last couple of years? No argument here with your opinion towards the under in this one.
Yep, these have been low-scoring games. You're right about that. Money time, play of the day, betting number 176. Iowa State plus the points, take 6.5. I did not like what I saw out of West Virginia in the second half against Tech. Couldn't score. They had a lot of drops, didn't help Greer out, but then they get the pick 6 to seal it late. I'll take Iowa State at home, and plus that great angle and the great numbers with Campbell, the great run he's been on as a dog, maybe a mini Tom Herman here with Iowa State. All right, Low Shack in the bag coming up next. We'll go run through all the NFL with our first London game, too. We'll touch all the big news and notes in the NFL and recap what happens tonight with 3 football games. We'll talk to you then. SportsBit, Betting Insight Today, SBR Picks, all the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. Talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.